Rockies with a friend of mine who was a medical doctor. We were out taking pictures of, old ghost towns, and we went up to an old prisoner World War II Japanese internment camp. And we were hiked in about 2 miles off where we parked the car off of a forest road. It was actually pretty well overgrown. And he said, "Hey, look at that huge bear." And it was like a little creek, then a base of the mountain there, which was probably a silver mine, which they put the internment camp by. And, I thought it was a bear till I pulled up my camera I had a good sized telephoto on it. And then that's when I realized that thing was not a bear. And about the same time I looked at it through the lens, it saw us and it screamed. And can you imagine the scream next to the base of a side of a mountain, the echoing and all that stuff. And then it decided to come after us. I know what a Bigfoot looks like, or whatever it was. It was big. It was hairy. It looked not like an ape. It did run, and I people, harassed me about this since I brought it up. It did run on 2 legs and then down to all fours, back to 2, all back to 4 as it was running after us.
Wow. That's really odd. That's a little like an ape. I mean, they're sort of bipedal, quadrupedal.
Yeah.
But, there again, that's an animal characteristic. But all this other stuff, they're just, I tell people, don't make up your mind so quick on this stuff. We don't know enough, I don't think.
No, I don't think we do.
They're human or they're not human. There's space aliens and all that. Well, keep your mind open here a minute.
Well, there's something, I don't know what it is. I didn't hang around there long enough to find out, but it did chase us, or its mate or companion was there by the car. By the time we got to the car, it was there. And it was bending a tree over, like a 5-inch tree, like nothing. It was just bowing it. And then it was screaming at us. And I remember getting in the car and starting the car, and I shoved it in gear. My friend was just getting his leg in the car, and I was dragging him. And I was so scared. I did stop, and he got in. But I tell you, I could have killed my friend because I had a rush of fear like you never could believe. But, it's really funny. I had Ed Romans on my show, well over a year ago, and he heard my talk about Bigfoot. He is in Canada. He is a folk singer, one of the top folk singers in Canada. And he lives kind of like near a forest and a farm. And he would take his dog out, and he probably still does, on a path going into the woods. And one day he was walking, and he saw this creature about 1,000 feet in front of him. And it screamed, took off running after him. One thing he told me, even before we went on the air, he said the same thing I noticed. It ran on 2 legs, and it would go down to 4 and back to 2. Strange thing. And so I don't know. I don't know if there's different species of this stuff or whatever. I don't know. I'll tell you this. I've never been in the woods since then. I won't go camping anymore. You wouldn't get me going even where you went.
Well, maybe if I ever see one or have an encounter like that. Well, my friend Cecil Pope, they heard him. This thing started coming after them. And it's like, wow, that's twice as big as we are. We better get out of here. I had another friend. He wanted me to come out to this fossil area out in San Juan, New Mexico, and wanted to show me what appeared to be some carvings in the sandstone cliffs by Coronado's crew. Apparently, they did go out there. And he was telling me his buddy, they'd seen Bigfoot out there in this area. And he said his buddy was kind of a big guy, and he was went quite a ways away around the hills there, the cliffs, whatever. And he saw these big footprints that were pressing down into pretty much hard clay. You'd have to weigh 800-900 pounds to make an impression on this clay. I've seen that clay. It's pretty hard. He said he was just going around a bluff there. All of a sudden, this thing just screamed bloody murder into his face, scared him so bad he fell backwards and fell on his face and skinned himself up. And like you, just took off, like crazy, and got back and told his friends, said, "Man, why are you all so bloodied up?" He said, "Oh, I fell." So apparently that scream will put the fear of God in you.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll just hightail it.
Well, it worked for me, I'll tell you that. I always, my standing joke on my show, I have not wet my pants since probably first grade or kindergarten. When I had that thing chasing after me, I tell you, I wet my pants. And I was, I've been in the military, I've been in all this stuff. I have never been so scared as that encounter, and I don't know. I mean, I like Ron going to, his camp he went to for many years out in the middle of nowhere and recording sounds. He was brave because, I talked to the Muckleshoot Indian woman back a couple years ago about Bigfoot. And, she was telling me these folklore stories, going back, like in the 1870s, 1860s, around there, about Bigfoot, attacking, the squaws and coming in and running off with, the women or babies and stuff like that. And then they would go out and try to find them. And then they would find bones and remains and stuff like that. So I do got a funny feeling they are cannibals. I could be totally wrong, but I again, like you mentioned earlier, maybe they eat their own when they pass on. I know there is in Africa tribes that actually eat their loved ones when they pass on.
Yep, I've seen the stories about that. Yep. Well, it's true, and that's also true of some of the giant races of men. They were typically really bad people, and they're typically blonde-haired, red-haired. So they get to this whole question too. If you're going to get into the research of these things, you just got to keep an open mind, and any crazy thing anybody brings up, go, well, let me look into it. And, of course, the Nephilim thing comes up real quick. A lot of people think that, well, that's just what they are. They're Nephilim. They're hybrids between these fallen angels and a monkey or an ape. And okay, I think I know I'll be condemned by a lot of people for saying this, but I think that's what was happening. I think that's what the Nephilim, I think that's what the fallen angels were doing. And I don't think they restricted themselves to human females. Now, a lot of people don't believe they don't believe that at all. But it does explain some of this stuff. And one of the things known about the Nephilim, the giant offspring of these fallen angels, if that's what they were, is they were cannibalistic. And the ones in Lovelock Cave out there, and Ron and Don and Ellie Marzulli have all been out to Lovelock to look around out there, and we talked to the Indians, the Paiutes, and they said, we tried to make friends with them. We tried to bring them into the tribe, but they wouldn't. They were just terrible. Said they'd dig up the dead and eat them. You go, oh my gosh! But finally, that's when the Paiutes said, look, if you people aren't going to act like human beings, we're going to kill you. So they drove them all into this big cave there, and pushed brush into it till they got it. The entrance of it full and set on fire and suffocated several dozen of these giant men. So a lot of people say, well, the Paiutes don't know anything. Well, who are you to say they don't know anything? Apparently that is true. That's their history with these people. And there's also, I'm not sure it was Paiutes, but we saw an old newspaper magazine article, and it showed us illustrated story of these Bigfoot, but they look more like human than Bigfoot. And the story was the Indians, they were stealing their young women, their girls. And you're going, yeah, well, what for? Are they mating with them? What happens? But they never came back. They never got them back. And like you say, these other Indians must have found the remains of them. Maybe that's what they did. They killed them and ate them.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing to think. A few stories like that, and you would be afraid of them. We've got them around here, around Crosby's, although not very many sightings because we don't have water in the canyons anymore. we don't have springs. They're all pretty much dried up. But before that, there were sightings and encounters. And over at Matador, Texas, about 40 miles east of Crosbyton, that's where Cecil saw and his family saw these the white Bigfoots, which may be a different species, may just be like different colored dogs, cats, and horses, or it might have been a really old one. Maybe they go gray or white when they get older. We don't know. But Cecil's phrase, and Cecil's a Christian man. He's not given to fantasy or sci-fi or anything like that. And his conclusion of his story is that thing was not of this world. So, I don't know what to say about that, but that was his impression. And that gets back to Ron. Ron's trying to explain. I think he's convinced they do disappear and they do appear out of nowhere. Well, man, you got to explain that with something. He said, well, Jesus did that. And we could too if we understood the mechanics of the whole thing. I go, well, I don't know, man. I know Jesus did, but I'm not sure about, I don't know the weir of some monkey can do that. I don't know. But I appreciate what Ron's doing. He's trying to answer this. This is a question that needs to be answered. And you can ignore it. But if you're a scientist, that's what scientists do. They follow up on leads. It may sound crazy and follow up. Well, that's what Ron's doing. That's what we're all doing. That's why we're all crazy enough to go on these expeditions.
Now, hopefully you pack some type of protection. I had a Bigfoot hunter on my show one time. I asked him, I said, what do you carry when you go out looking for Bigfoot? And he goes, I carry my knife. I don't think that would do any good if you actually ran across one that was angry for some reason.
Might make him worse.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we were told to bring a gun. I talked to the local sheriff here about it, and he said, yeah, we'll get some rat shot, because I figured we probably would encounter rattlesnakes or something where we couldn't get away from them, or they came into camp or something like that. So I had a rat shot. Well, rat shot wouldn't do much to Bigfoot, I don't think. But I didn't expect to shoot a Bigfoot. Frankly, I don't know. When I was a little kid, I was raised in a proper religious family. But we heard about UFOs and spaceships and all this stuff all the time. There were songs on the radio, And in fact, there were several encounters right here within a few miles of where I grew up out in the country. And I didn't believe or disbelieve it. I just said, if I ever see one, I'm going to go up with a craft and say howdy.
I don't know.
Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know.
I got to ask your honest opinion. Do you think it's going to take someday as somebody it sees a Bigfoot and it shoots it and brings back the head or whatever he can pack out to prove that they exist? I mean, wouldn't that make? I know a lot of people, if I say they should kill a Bigfoot, but I mean there would be the proof, wouldn't it?
Well, I would think so. Yeah, if you've got something that obviously cannot be faked and you bring it through proper channels. Problem with a lot of that stuff, and a lot of the researchers of these sort of things realize when it comes to UFOs, anything to do with some kind of alien concept or Bigfoot or anything else like that, they're afraid that if they tell anybody or show anybody, it'll be taken away from them, and they won't get to do any research on it. So it's kind of like spanking your children in public. My folks would wait till we got home, but if my mother ever had to tell me, you wait till we get home, man, I knew I was in big trouble. I didn't get a whipping. But nowadays, they can't do that at all because they're afraid their children will be taken away from them. So if you told anybody, hey, I've got a Bigfoot hand or arm here, who would tell? Because you're thinking, well, the feds are going to come get it, like did that chupacabra that flew down in South Texas. As soon as the word got out, they came in and said, we've got to have that for scientific research, and don't we talk to anybody about it and erase your videos. Well, why? Why is that? Why can't everybody know? Why do you guys have to be the only ones that know? What's the big secret? And I'm not sure that's, maybe there's been a lot of stuff found on Bigfoot, and it just ends up in the disappearing